At times, the odor of the pipe would be so overpowering that the family needed to open windows and doors. This ghost has visited this family now every year for the last 40 years. The following account was sent to me by my late friend and colleague Chris several years ago. A very average American family lives here on Long Island, New York, in a very average neighborhood, in a very modest, comfortable home on a friendly street. All is well and all are happy, but for one slight intrusion. Every year around this time, for the last 40 years, this one family deals with a ghost who visits their house. The story goes that a family that consisted of a young couple, two kids, and a grandfather built the house. The grandfather lived on the second floor and loved his new home. He had a sitting room on the second floor with a bedroom and private bath. Outside, he kept roses and flowers that he loved and tended with care. Both the young husband and wife worked full-time jobs. The grandfather watched over the children until the couple returned home at night. The family seemed typical to the other families in the neighborhood. The granddad was happy to be with his family and tend his roses. He was content with his life. Often you could find him smoking his pipe, waiting in his rocking chair on the front porch for the children to return from school. Life seems to be working smoothly for all. It started during one hot summer. The young couple began to fight. The young man started to drink heavily. Often, you could hear yelling and loud arguing erupting from the house. The neighbors began to talk about it and eventually called the police when the fighting became too loud or violent. You could hear doors slamming and the furniture being thrown against walls. By the fall of that year, gunshots were heard a few times, and the police were a constant fixture at the home. It was sad knowing the family was dissolving. Neighbors felt sorry for the old grandfather caught in the middle. It was a difficult time. The couple divorced. The wife took the children and moved away. The young husband placed the house for sale. The grandfather had to be placed in an old folks' home. Word had it his heart was broken. That was 40 years ago. Family now living in this home is a lovely, happy, normal family. They raised their kids in the house, kept the house up, and even replaced the bathrooms and kitchens a few times along the way. They also put up with Grandpa's ghost. It is said that the old man did not make out too well once he left his once happy home. He hated the old folks' home and only lasted a few years before he passed away. Coincidentally, a few years after owning this house, the new family started to notice odd activities around the home. It would always seem to be noticed the most around the holidays, the Christmas holidays. The family would be sitting in the dining room eating when they would hear the front door open and someone would walk up the staircase to the second floor. The family would call out to see who was there without any reply. They would then search the house to find it empty, but for the family sitting at the table. The family would hear someone slamming doors or footsteps overhead as they sat in the family room of someone walking around on the second floor. They would search only to always find an empty house. The worst of it all was the smell of the burning pipe. Each time this would occur, the house would fill with the smell of a freshly lit pipe being smoked. At this time, the odor of the pipe would be so overpowering that the family needed to open the window doors. This ghost has visited this family now every year for the past 40 years. I ran into the woman who owns this house recently in Macy's while Christmas shopping. We caught up on our families and neighbors. Before we parted, I asked her how she was making out with her yearly ghostly visits of the old grandfather. "Oh, he's with us again this year. He's a bit unhappy with us as we are doing renovation on the house, and he always hates when we work on the house. He has picked up his visits to daily explosions up to the staircase and marches around in the bedroom above the dining room as well, usual. The problem is that this year he visits every day and always has that darn smelly pipe with him. We know he is really annoyed as he now has added the new event of slamming the cabinet doors in the kitchen when we are in the den watching TV. I was stunned at how matter of fact my fellow town dwellers was taking this ghost invasion. I wonder if they ever feared this ghost or were concerned he was changing his activity. I asked her if she ever thought about bringing in a ghost hunter. No, we are not fearful at all. After 40 years of walking around the house and up the stairs, we all feel he is harmless. For some reason, he likes to be in the house during the holidays. He also refuses to move on. We think he still is tending his roses and smoking his pipe. It doesn't interfere with our lives, so we just let it be. Anyway, we never touched those roses yet. They have gotten bigger and more beautiful each and every year for the last 40 years. Why spoil a good thing? Once Christmas comes and goes, I take down the tree and he leaves till the next holiday arrives. We don't mind. We are used to him. I must say I'm envious of how easily this family deals with an obvious and ongoing journey with the paranormal. I'm not sure I could just shrug my shoulders as ghostly footsteps invaded my staircase and filled my house with smoke from the other side. I know I could not handle it with the ease and grace this family does. As I wished my neighbor a good holiday, I glanced into their shopping cart filled with Christmas tree ornaments and bright red stockings with the names of the family members printed across the top of each stocking. I could not help but notice the second stocking down had the word Grandpa written across it. They are a kind and a good family. I truly wish them a very Merry Christmas. And you too, Grandpa. It was Christmas Eve, and I was 14 years old. We had a lot of snow, but I wanted to ride my horse, so I went to the stables to saddle them up. I always tied him to my parents' porch when I rode up to the house. The stables were about a mile away, but I was used to the walking back and forth. I was getting ready to take him back when one of my friends came walking up, and I gave her a ride to her house. On my way back, my horse wanted to run, so I let him. We came upon my friend's sister, and I was going to give her a ride home, but my horse wouldn't stop. I laughed and said sorry, and figured he'd stop when we got to the house, but he didn't. We went straight down the driveway and out into the road. I started to panic, so I was pulling on the reins pretty hard, to the point I was standing and using all of my strength, and he didn't even slow down. I could see cars going through the crossroads, and he was galloping full bore with no intention of stopping. He tried to jump a brand new Ford LTD. Back then cars were like boats. He hit it chest high and I was tossed down the road. He did a perfect somersault and slid on his rump past the intersection. I was wearing a thick coat and 2 pairs of jeans, so no road rash for me. I landed on my left wrist and crushed it, but I survived. The horse had road rash on his rump, but was fine other than that. A police was parked at the intersection and saw the whole thing. He couldn't get hold of the ambulance service because they were out to lunch, so he drove me over to the ambulance driver's house, and I sat in their living room with their kids side-eyeing me while I wait for them to come back. Nothing paranormal here, but an interesting Christmas story. What even weirder is my older brother tried to ride him to the stables after the accident, and my horse took off with him too, and he couldn't stop him. My dad sold him because I was too afraid to ride him anymore. There was a group of cowboys in the town putting in cable. Odd. as in Northeast Ohio doesn't have cowboys, and my dad sold him to one of them. I'd see that cowboy racing through town because he couldn't control him either. It was like that horse decided one day that nobody except my dad was going to ride him anymore. The only reason my dad could ride him was because he would give him a little hit in the head when he tried to act up to run off. I was about 16. It was Christmas Eve and snowing heavily. My parents and myself were sitting in the living room with the Christmas tree lights on, having eggnog and opening up our stocking gifts as it was our tradition. We suddenly heard the door knocker banging really loudly 3 times. We saw no one out the window except when my dad opened the door and looked down. There was a bloody black cat lying across the threshold across the snow. What was fucked up was there was no human footprints in the snow, no tire tracks, and logistically, there was nowhere and no way that we would have not seen anyone if they put the cat there. It was still alive, so we shut the door and left it there, and it was gone in the morning. Not LOL. My family and myself are huge animal lovers. Of course, we took it in and made it comfortable. It was a young male that was not fixed and had been in a terrible fight. A few days later, we took it to a vet and he recovered nicely. The weird thing, aside from the knocking and no footprints in the snow, was my mom gave it to a friend of hers that lived down the street. About 4 or 5 months later, the cat, now happily part of the family, woke them all up by howling and screaming, just freaking the fuck out. Turns out an electrical fire had started in the garage, and one of the cars was also on fire. They all woke up. Everyone was okay, and the car didn't blow up, and only the garage was damaged. But they were very lucky in general, especially because there was all kinds of flammable stuff in the garage. Initially, they called him something stupid like Shadow, but then they renamed him Clark after Superman. LOL. He was a really nice cat and lived to be pretty old. This might sound ridiculous compared to some other posts here, but if it's Christmas time anyway, I decided to share this bizarre experience of mine with you all. I don't remember exactly how old I was at the time, but I was still in kindergarten. When my dad picked me up, we often used to stop by in a park on the way home. For a little context, my dad was and is a great man, and when I was little, around the same time, he used to make maps for treasures for me to find, and he would actually hide some real treasure around the park so that I could find them. So back to the story. We were in the park as usual, and while we were walking, there was a sewer hole from which were coming waves of steam, as if it was a furnace. We were heading towards it, and I remember my dad saying, "Look, maybe here is where Santa prepares the gift for good children." I laughed a little because around that time, I already knew Santa wasn't real. Then as we passed by the hole, I looked through the holes of the covering, and I saw a man wearing a weird triangle-shaped hat. Everything happened very fast, and I could only barely see through the holes and all the steam, but the man was sitting on a table and it looked as if he was writing something. When I saw him, I remember freezing for a little moment, and there were many things going on through my little head. I thought either that was a real elf and my dad was telling the truth, or maybe it was a man hired by him for me to see, just like he did all the treasures. Anyway, I didn't tell him anything and he didn't say anything either. When we arrived home, I remember telling my grandma that I saw a Christmas elf in the park, and she laughed and said, "That's great," or something. I knew she didn't believe me. My dad was also laughing. The following days, I kept thinking about it, but with time, I just went on with the idea that my dad told some man to dress up as an elf and jump in the sewer for me to see, to make me believe in the magic of Christmas. Well, A few years later, I finally asked him about it, and he said that he never did this and asked me more about what I saw. I told him, and he said that it was probably just my wild imagination and being little. However, I know exactly what I saw, and I remembered it clearly to this day. I even went to the same exact park since then to inspect the area, but a lot has changed since then, and that place looks totally different now. No walking path, no sewer hole, just plain grass. What's even weirder is that as the years went by, whenever I remember that man, I start comparing him more and more with myself. I only saw him briefly and from behind, but I could see his ear and the color and the type was just as mine. Also, his back looked like mine in some pics I took after I grew up, but this might be just me overthinking it throughout the time. Anyway, this was my little story, and whether you believe it or not, it's the second strangest thing that has ever happened to me